U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's Tuesday rally has set the ball rolling for an intense Trump versus Harris election. At her debut rally since Democrats lined up to endorse Harris, the 59-year-old left no stone unturned in taking swipes at her political rival. As for Donald Trump, neither did he. Here's a report.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris laid out her argument against Donald Trump at the first rally of her presidential campaign on Tuesday, while a new poll showed her with a slight lead over her Republican rival. Harris took aim at Trump's vulnerabilities, comparing her background as a former prosecutor to his record as a convicted felon.
In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
The rally saw a crowd of thousands in Milwaukee, the largest city in the battleground state of Wisconsin, which looks to be crucial in deciding November's election outcome.
And Wisconsin, this campaign is also about two different visions for our nation. Do we want to live in a country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law? Or a country of chaos, fear, and hate?
The crowd's energy was an encouraging sign for Democrats hopeful that Harris can revive what had been a flagging campaign under President Joe Biden. A new Reuters Ipsos poll conducted early this week after Biden dropped out of the race Sunday showed Harris taking a marginal lead over Trump 44 to 42% among registered voters. Compare that to another Reuters Ipsos poll last week that had Biden trailing by 2 points. While both were within a 3-point margin of error, the results could signal movement, if limited, in Democrats' direction. Still, Trump expressed confidence in his ability to defeat Harris in a conference call with reporters on Tuesday. Trump offered to debate Harris multiple times, saying, quote, "I want to debate her, and she'll be no different because they have the same policies." Harris has swiftly consolidated her party support after Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed her as his replacement over the weekend. Her campaign said that by Monday night she had secured support from the majority of delegates who at next month's party convention will determine the nominee, effectively wrapping up the nomination, and that it had raised $100 million since Sunday. Harris also gained 2 more big-name party backers on Tuesday in Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, the party leaders in the Senate and House. Meanwhile, Biden returned to Washington after several days isolating at his home in Delaware with COVID-19. His doctor said Biden tested negative and no longer has symptoms. Biden said on X that he would address the nation from the Oval Office Wednesday night, explaining his decision to end his campaign.
Let's talk more about this. Lester Munson is a senior fellow, National Security Institute, and co-head of the international practice at BGR Group, a leading government relations firm in Washington, D.C. Mr. Munson is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Munson, good to see you, and thank you very much for joining us at this hour. Before we talk about the imminent Harris versus Trump duel in the coming days, Harris has surpassed the $120 million fundraising in her favor. What do you think about that, and what does that tell you?
Well, I think it's an excellent indicator that Democrats are very excited to have Kamala Harris as their apparent nominee in the battle against Trump. There was a lot of concern, of course, that President Biden was too old to carry on this fight. His public appearances over the last few weeks were disappointing. Democrats saw that as much as anyone, and I suspect a big part of this massive fundraising on Harris's part is directly related to the enthusiasm party stalwarts have for her candidacy. She's a fresh face. She represents important constituencies for the Democrats. So there's just a huge uptick in enthusiasm among Democrats. They now think they have a chance against Donald Trump in November, which I think is true. This enthusiasm is not going to last forever, though. So we'll see how she's able to maintain her momentum over the next few weeks.
The Republicans are really not happy with this fundraising issue because Trump has already raised a complaint saying that it is not right, according to the act, that Harris has surpassed Biden's or has taken over Biden's campaign funds. What do you think about that?
Right. It's an interesting little maneuver in American politics to complain about the way the other party is conducting their fundraising. These complaints usually don't amount to much if there's a decision from the Federal Election Commission on this matter, and there's no guarantee that there will be. But if there is a decision on this matter, we probably won't know for a couple of years. Usually takes a long time to work these things out. The FEC is divided equally between the two parties, so I think it's unlikely that Kamala Harris's campaign is going to see any real consequences from this. What the Trump campaign is trying to show is that there's been kind of too much clever maneuvering by the Democrats here, that they're really trying to work around the Democratic rules for how you conduct an election. They're playing fast and loose with regulations. They're trying to make a case here that Democrats aren't really embracing democracy, which is a difficult lift for the Republicans, given that their nominee still has not accepted the results of the last presidential election in 2020. Right. But that's where we stand here in American politics.
Mr. Munson, let's now talk about the imminent duel, because if Democrats do go ahead and pick Kamala Harris to go against Donald Trump has accepted that he will conduct a debate with Kamala Harris. How do you think that will play out eventually?
Well, I think Americans will be fascinated by this. The last debate between former President Trump and President Biden was a massive win for former President Trump. He did very well in the debate, and President Biden did extremely poorly, so poorly that he ultimately had to withdraw from the race. So I think there's going to be some excitement if there is a debate between Trump and Harris. There's going to be a lot of excitement to see how this goes. President Trump, of course, is a big personality. He tends to dominate these situations. Kamala Harris also has a pretty big personality. She's got a good presence on the screen. She's got a terrific smile. She can deliver a negative attack as well as anybody. She doesn't necessarily have the policy experience and the political successes that Biden did. Right. So she's got some vulnerabilities for sure. But I think this is going to be much more of an even match between Trump and Harris. And a lot of people who view, in our country, who view politics as a sport are very much going to be interested in tuning in to see who prevails.
We'll have to leave it at that. Live from Washington, D.C., Mr. Lester Munson, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you, sir.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.